In the intricate web of the Kennedy assassination narrative, a name that remains relatively obscured is Eugene Dinkin, a U.S. Army codebreaker with an uncanny prediction. In the bustling city of Metz, France, Eugene Dinkin, an Army private first class, possesses a mind trained to decipher secrets. His duty, to decrypt cable traffic from NATO and the European commands. In the months preceding Dealey Plaza, Dinkin stumbles upon a revelation that shatters the fabric of his existence. Hidden within the labyrinth of communications are messages that point to a plot against President Kennedy's life, an assassination attempt set for November 28, 1963. The urgency of his revelation propels him into uncharted waters. On October 16, 1963, Dinkin pens a letter to Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy spelling out his ominous findings. A plot is underway, linking high-ranking members of the military, right-wing economic groups, and some national media outlets. He reports that a communist will be blamed. Weeks tick by, and still no response. Fueled by desperation, Dinkin defies protocol and goes AWOL, embarking on a journey that takes him from the U.S. Embassy in Luxembourg to the press room of the United Nations office in Geneva. On November 6th, Private Dinkin courageously shares his revelations with reporters and diplomats, casting light on a dark conspiracy. By now, he is sure the plot will take place on November 22nd. Despite gaining the attention of reporters and diplomats, none are moved to action. A CIA cable from the Geneva office the next day underlines the lack of seriousness Dinkin's warning is given. Director, advise any action desired, will continue to monitor developments but will not become involved vis-a-vis Swiss unless so directed. Dinkin returns to his unit and is immediately arrested and subjected to a psychological evaluation. A month later, he is held for treatment at the Walter Reed Naval Hospital. At the same time, Dinkin is undergoing psychological treatment for paranoia. The Warren Commission begins investigating the assassination. Dinkin's mother writes a letter to the Attorney General explaining how her son's knowledge could help the investigation, but it is dismissed by the Assistant Attorney General, who falsely claims to lack jurisdiction in the matter. For 4 months, Dinkin is subjected to strong drugs, psychological reconditioning, and even the threat of electric shock treatments. A mind that once deciphered codes now finds itself battling for its sanity. Dinkin is eventually discharged from the Army in April 1964. Prior to his release, he is interviewed by the FBI, but no records published to date indicate that the FBI or the Warren Commission ever followed up on any leads from the interview. As a curious coda to the Dinkin story, a similar fate is claimed by yet another cryptographer in the European landscape. As the Kennedy assassination plot unfolds, stationed just across the channel from Private Dinkin, in a top-secret post in Scotland, is Air Force Sergeant David Christensen, a code operator tasked with intercepting communications at a CIA listening post. While monitoring transmissions, Christensen stumbles upon enigmatic codes that point unmistakably to a malevolent plot. These codes, concealed within a transmission between Lisbon and Tangiers, hold chilling implications, a conspiracy born of the shadowy world of organized crime. When Christensen attempts to escalate his findings to the NSA, he is shut down by his superiors, removed from Scotland, and honorably discharged a month later. The Warren Commission never learns of Christensen's claims. It is only through a letter from Christensen to an Air Force colleague, dated 15 years after the events of 1963, that the world learns of Christensen's plight. Christensen pleads with his colleague for help. He has lost everything: his health, his beautiful wife, and his very sanity, a condition he claims was brought on by his failure to stop the JFK assassination. The question lingers: was Christensen a prophet, a madman, or could he have been a resolute soldier ensnared in the relentless machinations of a clandestine realm where unveiling truths can indeed be a deadly proposition? Decades later, with the release of over 50,000 documents by the Trump administration, the hidden stories of Eugene Dinkin and David Christensen have emerged, shedding new light on the JFK assassination. Yet the question remains: why were these soldiers ignored and silenced? Was it a mere coincidence, or part of a larger, more sinister plot? In the shadowy corridors of conspiracy, the name Joseph Miltier stands like an ominous beacon. A right-wing extremist with political ambitions, Miltier was known for his connections to white supremacist groups. But it was his eerie prediction of the Kennedy assassination that would mark his place in history. A prediction that might have changed the course of events had it been heeded. November 9, 1963, undercover informant William Somerset meets a Georgia man, Joseph Miltier, at the Sun Hotel in Miami. The room, secretly wired for sound, captures the aging man's shocking revelation regarding President Kennedy. When the informant raises the topic of Kennedy's upcoming campaign visit to Miami, Miltier tells the informant that there is a plan underway to kill President Kennedy. The informant's disbelief is palpable. How can someone get to Kennedy with so many bodyguards?
He'll have 1,000 bodyguards. Don't worry about that. More bodyguards than his. More easy this.
But how? Asks the informant. Miltier's response chills the room. It can be easily done with a high-powered rifle from an office building.
From an office building. With a high-powered rifle.
The police will be all over us, warns the informant. But Miltier is unflinching, promising a swift blame shift to divert attention.
They'll pick up somebody within an hour of that. And they're going to get with him. So I can throw the public off.
The informant wastes no time relaying this shocking information. November 12th, the Miami police are briefing the Secret Service. The police are detailing not just the plot, but Miltier's dangerous connections, including ties to a tragic church bombing. Despite the gravity of the threat, a chilling miscommunication ensues. The information never reaches the agents responsible for Kennedy's upcoming Dallas visit. The Protective Research Section dismisses the case, sending the report to various field offices but failing to ring the alarm. And so, the world watches in horror as the prediction comes to pass in Dallas on November 22, 1963. A haunting question lingers. Could the tragedy have been prevented? In the annals of the JFK assassination conspiracy case, one figure stands out for her chilling predictions and untimely demise: Rose Cheramy. On the night of November 20th, 1963, Louisiana State Police Lieutenant Francis Fruge was summoned to Moussa Memorial Hospital in Eunice, Louisiana, where he encountered Rose Cheramy, a heroin addict in the throes of withdrawal. As Fruge transported her to East Louisiana State Hospital for treatment, she made a startling claim. 2 days before the assassination, Cheramy asserted that she was part of a plan to kill President Kennedy during his upcoming visit to Dallas. Fruge and the hospital staff dismissed Cheramy's claims as that of a raving heroin lunatic. After the assassination, Lieutenant Fruge contacted the hospital, urging them to hold Cheramy until he could speak to her. During her subsequent interview, Cheramy revealed that she traveled with 2 men from Miami heading to Dallas. According to Cheramy, the 2 men intended to carry out the Kennedy assassination. Traveling through Louisiana, the parties stopped at the Silver Slipper Lounge in Eunice, known by authorities to be a house of prostitution. The owner of the lounge threw Cheramy out after a dispute. She was on the road hitchhiking when she was struck by a car and taken to the hospital. Cheramy further revealed that she had been a stripper at Jack Ruby's nightclub, and Lee Harvey Oswald and Ruby were not only known associates but homosexual lovers. Years later, as part of DA Jim Garrison's efforts investigation into conspiracy, Fruge sought to confirm the identities of the 2 men in Cheramy's story. To Fruge's surprise, the owner of the lounge identified the 2 men from a stack of mugshots. According to the owner, the men were pimps who transported prostitutes from Florida. One of them was Sergio Arcacha Smith, a well-known anti-Castro Cuban refugee who had been active in the New Orleans Cuban Revolutionary Front. Arcacha Smith had connections to organized crime figure Carlos Marcello and had befriended David Ferry, a pilot and anti-Castro activist. Ferry had been named as a suspect in the Kennedy assassination shortly after the president's death and died under mysterious circumstances. The identification of Sergio Arcacha Smith and the Cuban companion seemed significant, as their alleged involvement potentially linked Cheramy to the anti-Castro Cuban network and organized crime elements in New Orleans.
It raised the possibility of a broader conspiracy surrounding the Kennedy assassination. Despite Fruge's identification of the individuals and their potential connections, further corroboration remained elusive. The investigation into Cherami's claims hit a dead end. The exact extent of the truth behind Cherami's story and the identities of the men she traveled with from Miami remained unresolved. Tragically, Cherami's body was found 2 years later on a Texas highway on September 4, 1965. Jerry Don Moore, the driver who encountered her, claimed to have accidentally run over her after swerving to avoid suitcases left in the road. However, suspicions arose when a deep punctate stellate wound was found on Cherami's forehead, reminiscent of a contact gunshot wound.